Captain's Log, Galactic Date 3479.6. Recording this log pains me more than a quantum taser to the pride, but regulations demand I document this peculiar series of events. I am Fleet Commander Vex'thor Ravenclaw of the Galactic Confederation's 7th Armada, and this report will detail how a single human armed with what they call duct tape managed to not only save my flagship but ultimately secure victory against the dreaded Nexus Dominion. Before this incident, I commanded the most advanced warship ever constructed in the Andromeda Galaxy, the Stellar Dominion. 12 quantum cores powered our main drives. 300 automated defense systems protected our hull. The neural network controlling our weapons could calculate 1 million targeting solutions per second. Our boarding shields could withstand an assault from an entire army. The ship was quite simply perfection incarnate. At least that's what I believed until approximately 47 standard hours ago. I suppose I should mention my previous attitude toward human spacecraft. Primitive would have been a generous description from my perspective. Their vessels looked like they had been cobbled together from spare parts found floating in a junkyard. No elegant crystalline architecture, no quantum-locked hull plates, not even basic consciousness integration. Just crude metal boxes held together by welds, and as I would soon discover, this mysterious substance they revere called duct tape. The humans had recently joined the Galactic Confederation, much to the amusement of most advanced species. Their application included a video of something they called NASCAR as proof of their engineering prowess. We nearly rejected them on that alone. But the Council's policy of inclusion demanded we give them a chance, so we assigned them a minor role in the Confederation's peacekeeping fleet. Looking back at my personal logs from just 2 days ago makes me cringe. These humans I had recorded represent everything wrong with rushing species into the Confederation. Their ships look like they would fall apart if you sneezed in their general direction. Their weapons are based on crude projectile technology that went out of fashion millennia ago. And their repair protocols, they seem to think anything can be fixed with either percussive maintenance or this silvery adhesive strip they're so fond of. Oh, how the quantum matrices have turned. I sit here now, recording this log from my quarters aboard the Stellar Dominion, surrounded by blessed, beautiful strips of duct tape holding critical systems together. The same duct tape that saved not only this ship but quite possibly the entire Confederation. And I owe it all to a human engineer named Marcus Rodriguez, who showed me that sometimes the simplest solution is the most elegant one. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, when our sensors first detected the anomaly that would lead to the most humbling and extraordinary experience of my 300-year career. The anomaly turned out to be a Nexus Dominion stealth fleet. 12 warships, armed to their quantum teeth, dropped out of hyperspace less than 10,000 kilometers from our position. Under normal circumstances, this would have been a minor inconvenience for the Stellar Dominion. We were, after all, the most advanced ship in 3 galaxies. But they caught us during routine maintenance. 3 of our quantum cores were powered down, our main weapons were running diagnostics, and half our shield generators were offline. The engineer in me wants to calculate the astronomical odds of such terrible timing, but I suspect that would only depress me further. Evasive maneuvers, I remember shouting, my 4 hearts racing. Get those quantum cores back online. The Nexus ships opened fire. Their energy beams sliced through our weakened shields like they were made of photon paper. Critical systems started failing across the board. Commander Tellith Starweaver, my engineering chief, reported catastrophic damage to our primary power distribution network. Sir Talith's voice crackled over the comm, her usual cool professionalism cracking. The quantum containment field is destabilizing. We have maybe 20 minutes before total core failure. That's when our sensors detected an approaching vessel. I expected reinforcements from the Confederation. Instead, what appeared on our view screen looked like a metal brick with engines strapped to it. A human cargo ship, of all things. This is Marcus Rodriguez of the Earth merchant vessel Lucky Break, a voice transmitted on all frequencies. Looks like you folks could use a hand. I nearly ordered our point defense systems to shoot him down on principle. The last thing I needed was some primitive human merchant watching the mighty Stellar Dominion's embarrassing predicament. But with core containment failing and the Nexus fleet regrouping for another attack run, I wasn't exactly swimming in options. This is a military emergency, I transmitted back, trying to sound appropriately commanding despite our situation. Clear the area immediately." "Yeah, I can see that," Rodriguez replied, and I swear I could hear him grinning. "But here's the thing, I've got 15 years experience patching up fusion reactors in the asteroid belt. Your quantum cores ain't that different, just fancier. Plus I've got something that might help." Before I could respond, his tiny ship had already docked with our emergency airlock. The security feeds showed a human male stepping out, wearing what appeared to be a patched-up spacesuit held together with, yes, you guessed it, duct tape. He carried a large toolbox in one hand and what looked like a shopping bag in the other. Commander Talith met him at the airlock, her expression showing the exact mix of horror and desperation I was feeling. "Sir," she reported, "the human insists he can help stabilize the quantum containment field." 10 minutes to core failure, our AI helpfully announced. Rodriguez's voice came over the comm again, somehow still cheerful. "Look, Commander Ravenclaw, I know your ship's about 1,000,000 times fancier than mine, but sometimes the simplest solutions work best. You can either let me try to help, or we can all experience what a quantum core breach feels like. Your call." I looked at my display showing the Nexus fleet preparing for another attack run. Then at the core containment readings dropping into critical levels. Then at the security feed showing this human standing there, holding up a roll of silver tape like it was some kind of divine artifact. "Fine," I transmitted, my voice dripping with all 4 types of Andromedan sarcasm. "But if you make things worse, I'll personally ensure your name goes down in history as the human who destroyed the pride of the Confederation fleet." "Fair enough," Rodriguez replied, already heading toward engineering with Talith. "Though I gotta say, if I pull this off, I expect one hell of a good story to tell at the spaceport bars." Little did I know then just how good that story would turn out to be. Have you ever watched a master artist at work? I have. Though I never expected that art to involve rolls of adhesive tape and a toolbox that looked like it had survived several small wars. The quantum containment field was collapsing because 3 of our primary quantum-locked conduits had been severed by enemy fire. These conduits, made from rare crystalline materials that cost more than some small planets, normally channeled exotic particles with perfect efficiency. Now they were spraying quantum radiation across engineering like a broken coolant line. "Oh yeah, I've seen this kind of thing before," Rodriguez said, examining the failing conduits with what I can only describe as inappropriate casualness. "Worked a salvage operation on Jupiter's moon Europa, where we had to redirect a plasma stream using nothing but spare parts and prayer." Commander Talith's facial tentacles were twitching with anxiety. "These are quantum-locked crystalline conduits. They require perfect atomic alignment to function. You cannot possibly." "Watch me," Rodriguez interrupted, pulling out a roll of his precious duct tape. But this wasn't just any duct tape, as he quickly explained. This was, and I quote, "the good stuff. Reinforced with carbon nanotubes, rated for vacuum use. Cost me half a month's pay, but worth every credit." What happened next still defies my understanding of physics. Rodriguez began by creating what he called a temporary bypass, using pieces of standard metal piping from his toolbox. He wrapped each pipe segment with multiple layers of this specialized duct tape, explaining that the carbon nanotubes would help contain the quantum particles. "The trick," he said while working, "isn't to try and make it perfect. Just got to give the particles the path of least resistance, like herding cats, but with quantum mechanics." Our engineering crew watched in horror as this human essentially created a quantum containment system out of spare parts and adhesive tape. Several of them had to turn away when he started using an old-fashioned wrench to adjust the alignment. Commander Talith looked like she was about to faint. 5 minutes to core breach, the ship's AI announced, somehow managing to sound both helpful and condescending. Rodriguez didn't even look up. "Almost got it. Just need to." There, he slapped the last piece of tape in place and stepped back. "Try it now." Commander Talith checked her readings, her eyes widening. "This is impossible. The quantum containment field is stabilizing? How? These materials shouldn't even be able to channel quantum particles." "Yeah, that's what they said about my patch job on the Europa mission too," Rodriguez grinned, patting the duct-taped bypass. "Sometimes you don't need fancy crystals and perfect atomic alignment. Sometimes you just need to give particles a decent road to travel on." The core breach warning ceased. Our quantum core stabilized. The entire engineering crew stood in stunned silence, staring at the jury-rigged repair that had just saved a ship worth more than the combined GDP of several Earth nations. I cannot include this in my official report, Commander Talith finally said, her voice weak. No one would believe it. The Quantum Engineering Guild would revoke my credentials just for witnessing this. Genius Rodriguez suggested, already packing up his tools. Abomination Talith corrected, though I detected a note of reluctant admiration in her voice. I was about to thank Rodriguez grudgingly when our tactical officer's voice cut through the moment of relief. Multiple Nexus signatures detected. They're coming back for another attack run. Rodriguez looked at the duct-taped bypass, then at our still damaged weapons systems, and I saw a gleam in his eye that I would soon learn to both respect and fear. Say, he said casually, I don't suppose you'd be interested in hearing some other unconventional ideas? Because I've got about 3 more rolls of this tape. And I've always wanted to see what a quantum-powered warship can really do. The Nexus fleet appeared on our screens, like angry wasps returning to a disturbed nest. But this time they brought friends. The tactical display showed 25 warships, including their infamous planet killer. The Void's Vengeance. Well, Rodriguez said, studying the tactical display with what I can only describe as inappropriate enthusiasm. That's a whole lot of fancy ships. Bet none of them have duct tape, though. Before I could remind him that this was hardly the time for jokes, our damage control systems blared new warnings. The quantum radiation from our earlier damage had begun eating through secondary systems. Commander Talith's facial tentacles went from their normal healthy purple to a sickly gray. Sir, she reported, the radiation damage is spreading exponentially. Even with the containment field stable, we've got cascading failures throughout the ship. The automated systems are shutting down, and she paused, checking her readings twice. The neural network is starting to degrade. Translation for the human in the room, Rodriguez asked, already pulling out more tools from his seemingly bottomless toolbox. The ship's brain is dying, I explained, watching system after system go dark. Without the neural network, we can't coordinate weapons, shields, or navigation. We're dead in space. The Nexus fleet was moving into attack formation. Their commander, Admiral Zenith Brightscale, opened a channel. His scarred face filled our main view screen, mandibles clicking in obvious satisfaction. Commander Ravenclaw, he growled, surrender your vessel or be destroyed. You have 5 minutes to evacuate your crew. I was about to give him an anatomically impossible suggestion about where he could put his ultimatum when Rodriguez cleared his throat. Question, he said, raising his hand like a student in class. What's the Confederation's policy on salvage rights? Everyone on the bridge turned to stare at him. Even Admiral Brightscale looked confused. Salvage rights, I asked. What does that have to do with anything? Well, Rodriguez said, pulling up Confederation regulations on his ancient tablet computer. According to Section 47B of the Confederation Maritime Code, any civilian who saves an abandoned military vessel from certain destruction can claim temporary command rights under the Salvage Act of 2279. Commander Talith's tentacles curled in shock. You cannot be serious. 4 minutes to surrender, Admiral Brightscale reminded us impatiently. Look. Rodriguez continued, your neural network is fried. Your crew can't operate the ship manually, you're all too integrated with the automated systems. But I'm used to flying ships with nothing but manual controls and basic computer assistance. If you evacuate the crew, I can claim salvage rights and keep fighting. That's insane, I said. This is the most advanced warship in the Confederation. You can't just. 3 minutes, Brightscale interrupted, looking increasingly annoyed at being ignored. Rodriguez held up his tablet, showing the relevant regulation. Says right here I can. Unless you've got a better plan? Because right now your options are surrender, evacuation, or watching your crew die from radiation exposure when the next hit breaches our jerry-rigged containment field. I looked at my crew. At the approaching enemy fleet. At the cascade of system failures spreading across our displays. At the roll of duct tape Rodriguez was absently tossing from hand to hand. Commander Talith, I said finally, begin evacuation procedures. Transfer all personnel to the emergency life pods. Sir, she asked, clearly wondering if the radiation had affected my brain. That's an order. And I turned to Rodriguez. I expect to get my ship back in one piece. The human grinned, already settling into the command chair I had just vacated. Define one piece, because I've got some ideas about how to use these quantum cores that definitely weren't in the manufacturer's manual. As I headed for the escape pods with my crew, I heard Rodriguez humming something. Our translator rendered it as an ancient Earth song about pirates. I had just handed over the most advanced ship in the Confederation to a human with a roll of duct tape and a suspicious fondness for improvised engineering. Somewhere my ancestors were probably spinning in their quantum stasis chambers. From my escape pod's communication channel, I watched in fascinated horror as Rodriguez began what he called customizing my beautiful warship. The Nexus fleet held their position, probably as confused as I was by the humans' actions. First things first, Rodriguez announced to no one in particular, since he was now alone on the massive ship. Let's see what this baby can really do without all those safety protocols. He pulled up the ship's schematics on his tablet, which looked comically primitive next to our quantum displays. You know what your engineers did wrong, he asked over the comm. They made everything too perfect. Sometimes you need a little chaos in the system. What are you doing to my ship, I demanded, watching him attach strips of duct tape to various crucial components. Creating controlled imperfections, he replied cheerfully. See, your quantum cores are designed to channel energy perfectly. But sometimes perfect isn't what you want. Sometimes you want a little turbulence. He proceeded to explain his strategy, which sounded more like the ravings of a mad scientist than a battle plan. Using his specialized duct tape, he created what he called quantum turbulence channels throughout the ship's power distribution network. Back on Earth, we figured out that sometimes a little chaos makes things work better. Like how dimpled golf balls fly farther than smooth ones. I'm just applying the same principle to quantum mechanics. That's not how quantum mechanics works, Commander Talith shouted from her escape pod. Maybe not in your textbooks, Rodriguez grinned, slapping another strip of tape onto a power conduit. But I've got a theory about quantum particles and chaos theory that's going to either win me a Nobel Prize or get me court-martialed. Possibly both. He had reconfigured our 12 quantum cores to operate in what he called controlled instability. The duct tape, embedded with carbon nanotubes, created irregular patterns in the quantum field. According to everything I knew about physics, it should have caused a catastrophic meltdown. Instead, power readings were showing levels I'd never seen before. Your ship's AI was limiting the cores to safe levels, Rodriguez explained, munching on something he called a protein bar while working. But if we introduce just the right amount of quantum turbulence, we can push them way past their rated capacity. It's like overclocking a computer, but with exotic particles. You're going to blow up my ship, I predicted gloomily. Probably not, he replied with far less certainty than I'd have liked. Though you might want to keep those escape pods at a safe distance, just in case. The next part of his strategy involved our weapons systems. Without the neural network, targeting would be impossible, or so I thought. Rodriguez had a different idea. You folks overcomplicated it, he said, rerouting power through his jury-rigged systems. All these quantum calculations and predictive algorithms. Sometimes you just need to point and shoot, and maybe add some spin. Spin, I asked, dreading the answer. Oh yeah. If we modify these quantum beams to spiral, using the turbulence from our cores, we can create a sort of quantum shotgun effect. Less accurate, maybe, but way more fun. Admiral Brightscale's voice crackled over the comm. Your time is up. Prepare to be destroyed. Almost ready, Rodriguez muttered, attaching one final strip of duct tape to what I'm pretty sure was a critically important power coupling. Just need to. There. The Stellar Dominion's exterior lights began pulsing with an ominous purple glow. Energy readings were off the charts, and I swear I could see quantum particles dancing along the hull in patterns that shouldn't have been possible. What exactly are you planning, I asked, both terrified and fascinated. Rodriguez's grin was visible, even through the grainy video feed. Remember those old Earth movies where one ship takes on an entire fleet? Always wondered if that was possible with the right technology. He cracked his knuckles and settled into the command chair. Time to find out if duct tape truly can fix everything. The Nexus fleet opened fire first. 25 ships unleashing their full arsenal at the Stellar Dominion, now crewed by a single human whose solution to every engineering problem involved adhesive tape. Here goes nothing, Rodriguez announced. Let's see what this quantum turbulence can do. The Stellar Dominion moved in ways I'd never seen before. Without the neural network's safety protocols, Rodriguez pushed the engines beyond their design limits. The ship spun and weaved through the barrage of enemy fire, like a drunken dancer who somehow never missed a step. "You know what your fancy ships all have in common?" Rodriguez asked over the General Command channel, ensuring every captain in the Nexus fleet could hear him. "You rely too much on predictive targeting. But nobody can predict crazy." He proved his point by engaging the modified weapons systems. The quantum beams, instead of firing in their usual precise patterns, spiraled out in wild corkscrews of energy. The first volley caught 3 Nexus ships completely off guard, their predictive shields useless against the chaotic attack pattern. "That's impossible," Admiral Brightscale roared. "Our shields are quantum synchronized. Nothing can penetrate them without proper targeting solutions." "Yeah, about that," Rodriguez replied, turning the stellar Dominion into a lateral spin that should have torn the ship apart. "Turns out quantum particles really like to dance when you give them a good beat. Speaking of which..." He activated the ship's external speakers, broadcasting what he called classic rock across all frequencies. The sound of ancient Earth music echoed through space as Rodriguez bobbed his head to the rhythm, timing his attacks to the beat. "This is not a proper way to conduct space warfare," Brightscale protested as another of his ships fell to the spiraling quantum beams. "Proper is boring," Rodriguez shot back. "Also, you might want to move your flagship about 3 degrees to port." "Why would I?" Brightscale began, but was cut off as the stellar Dominion's quantum cores suddenly went into what Rodriguez had termed maximum overdrive. The duct tape modifications channeled the excess energy into a massive pulse that rippled through space. 5 more Nexus ships lost power as the quantum turbulence disrupted their carefully calibrated systems. "The thing about quantum mechanics," Rodriguez lectured while executing a maneuver that looked more like a breakdance move than a combat tactic, "is that sometimes you need to embrace the chaos. Also, your ships are way too symmetrical. Makes your movement predictable." The remaining Nexus ships tried to coordinate their attacks, but Rodriguez's erratic piloting style defied their targeting computers. He had transformed the Confederation's most advanced warship into the equivalent of a barroom brawler, throwing quantum punches that bent space in ways that made my scientific education cry. Admiral Brightscale made one final attempt to turn the tide, ordering his remaining ships into a sphere formation around the stellar Dominion. "You're surrounded. You cannot possibly evade attacks from all directions." "Surrounded?" Perfect. Rodriguez's grin was audible. "Hey, Commander Ravenclaw, remember how I said the duct tape was creating quantum turbulence? Want to see what happens when we reverse the polarity?" "That's not a real thing," Commander Talith shouted from her escape pod. But apparently it was. Rodriguez triggered something he jury-rigged in the engine room, and the quantum turbulence suddenly inverted. The energy patterns that had been spiraling outward collapsed inward instead, creating a temporary quantum singularity. The Nexus ships, caught in the gravitational pull of physics gone wrong, collided with each other in a spectacular display of mutual destruction. Only Brightscale's flagship escaped, its engines straining to break free of the quantum maelstrom. "This is a violation of every known law of physics," Brightscale raged as his fleet crumbled around him. "Laws of physics?" Rodriguez laughed, punching in one final command. "More like guidelines, really. Oh, and Admiral, you've got a little something on your quantum drive." The something turned out to be a strip of duct tape that Rodriguez had somehow launched during the chaos, jamming the flagship's primary engine intake. The mighty vessel, pride of the Nexus fleet, spun out of control and went dark. The battle was over. A single human, armed with duct tape and what he called vibes, had defeated one of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy. The Galactic Council's emergency session to discuss the battle lasted 6 hours. 5 of those hours were spent arguing whether to classify duct tape as a weapon of mass destruction. Rodriguez attended the session wearing his patched-up spacesuit, still held together with the same tape that had saved our ship. He spent most of the meeting doodling new ship modifications on his tablet, while various council members debated the implications of human engineering practices. The council ultimately decided to create an entirely new category of technology classification: primitive solutions, with unexpectedly devastating results. They also appointed Rodriguez as the head of a new engineering task force, though they insisted he promise not to share his quantum turbulence theories with impressionable young engineers. As for me, I had to endure the indignity of filing an official report explaining how my ship survived because of adhesive tape and what Rodriguez called good vibes. Commander Talith submitted her resignation to the Quantum Engineering Guild before they could revoke her credentials, then immediately joined Rodriguez's task force. The Stellar Dominion remains in service, though now it sports a new insignia, a silver roll of duct tape crossed with a quantum spanner. Rodriguez insisted. The council approved it unanimously, if only to stop him from explaining his theories about quantum physics and music again. And me? I keep a roll of duct tape in my quarters now, just in case, though I still maintain that the universe has gone slightly mad.